Here we are. Has anybody been watching what's happening over in Europe? Looks like they're ginning themselves up another little brouhaha. Um, I wanted to talk about this a little bit. I've been getting texts from people the last couple days saying, "Hey, Greg, what do you think about the war that's the Russians' invasion of Ukraine and all of that?" And uh, I have a bunch of thoughts on it, and it all comes back to women's suffrage. For those of you who don't know, women spent about 100 years, the women's suffragist movement, suffragettes they called them, working to get women enfranchised and get women the right to vote in the United States. And this is not a misogynistic bashing of women video. So for any of you skinny jean wearing, top knot, soy boy, limp wristed, milk toast pussies, I would turn this off because you're not going to get it. You're not even a man. But for everybody else who's wrestling with this, we're wrestling what's going on in our country. We're wrestling with what's going on in Europe. We're wrestling with what we should do. We have a long, hard look in the mirror to see our part in it. We've been bragging since the fall of the Berlin Wall, I think it was in '88, we've been bragging about being the sole remaining superpower. We've been rubbing it in, arrogantly thumping our chest about it for the last 30 some odd years. And the problem is when you're a sole surviving superpower, when you're the sole remaining superpower, there's some responsibility because superpower means superpower. It means with awesome power comes awesome responsibility. My kids are reasonably bright, hardworking youngsters, and I've told them as we talk about what they're going to do in their lives, I've told them, you've been graced, you've been gifted with intelligence and hustle, and guidance and a family, and it is your responsibility to make the world a better place. When I went camping with my dad when I was a kid, after we camped, we had to go around and pick up extra garbage at the campsite, stuff people had left behind. My dad would gripe about it, and he'd say, no matter what, you always leave the campsite better than you left it, better than you showed up. We go shooting out in the desert. We always pick up more brass and take some of the junk out of the desert with us when we're done. I've been inculcated with the zeitgeist of making the world a better place in everything I do. My children, my relationships, my life, my business, my neighborhood, my home. I think many of us are the same in that respect. So it's a deep dive into American history to find out why property owners and white men were the folks who were allowed to vote initially. And it took a while, and then women got the right to vote. The interesting thing is, during this time, men could be drafted into war. So you start thinking about the greater good, and I mean the greater good beyond your nation's borders, when you can be plucked out of your life and sent off to war. Everything is not about war, don't get me wrong, and I'm not a warmonger by any stretch of the imagination. But so much of life is about simple core things. There is accountability and repercussions for our vote, and men have known this because men have served in every war. Now, women have served in a minor way in every war, in a minor way in every war. And we can beat little drums and we can jerk off on CNN and tell everybody how important women are to the military complex, blah, 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 blah. The truth is, their contributions are valued. They are not the core of the military. Are they a core of the nurses' corps? Yes. Are they really important in what they do? Of course. Are they the core of the military? No. So it's awful. You say this stuff out loud and it just bristles people. It angers them, but it's true. For instance, 98% of knife buyers are male. It's just a statistic. So if I say stuff that pisses off women, it's not because I'm misogynistic. It's not because I'm antagonistic. It's not because I don't care. It also is because there's almost no repercussions. If women don't buy my knives, it makes zero effect on me. I actually engage women all the time in cutlery. I engage women all the time in politics. I engage with them all the time in everything to do with our country. I find most women aren't interested in politics the way men are. Why is that? I don't know. We'll let Bill Maher figure that out on HBO. I think it has something to do with generations and generations of us being sent off to war. Our country was founded on young men, not young women. Young men going off and throwing themselves in harm's way. We have paid the price, and everyone forgets this, while they beat up the United States for taking a little while to get slavery right, taking a little while to get votings right, taking a little while to get equality right. Eons of inequality and slavery, ubiquitous slavery across the globe. Still, you can go buy a person today. Slavery in human history actually is the norm. Self-determinism and freedom is a uniquely American idea that was a disruptor in the same way the tech companies and tech oligarchs have disrupted our nice little economy we had chugging along for the last couple hundred years. Freedom is a disruptor. It disrupts subservience. It disrupts divine right of kings. It disrupts totalitarianism. And we see this battle is being waged today in Ukraine. What started this? How did we get here? Are we going to go fight there? All these questions being bandied about by fools. Let's remember why Ukraine today is under Russian assault. And I'm not going to candy coat this. I'm going to tell you why there's an assault in Ukraine. And this should loop back to why I talk politics. Oftentimes, parents who hold their children accountable are seen as abusive by parents who don't hold children accountable. Bosses who hold their team, leaders who hold their team accountable, become very effective, and the number one knock is there's something abusive about them. Because from the outside, accountability seems abusive to people who are not held to account. Who are not held to account in this country? How about the entire leadership class and women voters? Not held to account. Now, men voters aren't held to account quite the same way, but we've been indoctrinated with an accountability. Here it is. I've been to war. I volunteered. My son will go to war. He will volunteer. My father volunteered. My grandfather volunteered. Do you see the accountability? It's supreme accountability. Accountability of the citizenry is the most important thing. And right next to that is the accountability of the leadership class. And we have neither. So, how did Vladimir Putin invade Ukraine? This is what I wanted to unpack with you today, and let's talk about it. It is numerically and statistically the fault of the American white upper middle class female voter. Women who will watch this war and wonder why could this be? How could this be? They're going to say on the news that Vladimir Putin's evil. He's not evil. He's a Russian. He's doing what Russians do. He's doing what we would have done if we had any balls in Iraq. We would have kept the place and kept the oil. After killing all those people and doing all that and then just leaving them to their own devices, fiddling in their own feces, we should have kept Afghanistan too. We should have kept Afghanistan and pulled all the precious metals out of there to make. We should have turned Afghanistan into an electric vehicle battery plant. But we don't have the balls to do imperial things anymore, and it ain't popular. So he's doing it. Now, here's what's happened. Let me just lay this out. So when you listen to the news tonight, or you're chatting with one of your friends who thinks they're in the know, here is what happened. We won the Cold War, right? We didn't win, it just happened, it ended. Then we pranced around, patting ourselves on the back, being the last sole surviving superpower, and we rubbed Russia's face in it. They have an entire 2 generations of people now who've had it rubbed in their face how they used to be something and now you ain't nothing. And let me tell you something, as a post-middle-aged man, there is nothing more fearful to us than the day the people around us don't fear our ability. I don't want people afraid of me, but I want people to consider the fear of me. What man does not want to be considered dangerous? You should be considered dangerous. Your woman will like it. Your kids will like it. It will benefit you in every way, shape, or form. Nobody wants to be seen as impotent. So all of us men, we muddle our way through life trying to push the Rubicon of impotency as far down the line as we can. And we rubbed Russia's face in it for the last 2 decades. Then we started expanding NATO. And by expanding NATO, it seems like a good idea. But the problem with NATO is NATO isn't actually much of an alliance. NATO is an extension of America. So what we have done, I want you to imagine if Russia had taken that stupid commie that runs Canada up there, Russian Justin Trudeau, if the Russians had cut a deal with him to put missile systems in Canada off the coast of the United States, how do you think that would go? And what we have done, we have made bedfellows of Ukraine. Now, who made bedfellows of Ukraine? Let's be quite clear. It was Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. They've taken a lot of money from Ukraine. And what we've been doing is we've been encroaching, working our way up to Russia with NATO. Now, for those of you who don't know what NATO is, it is basically a compact amongst nations that was formed after World War II, kind of a residual of the League of Nations, and it was an alliance we built to keep big things from changing in Europe and causing another world war, since we'd had 2 of them. Now, for a little history lesson, World War I happened, and France, England, and the United States basically exacted revenge on the Germans for the cost of the war with the Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles arguably is the document, the seminal revenge document of the 20th century that started World War II. Why am I talking about World War I? Because it's germane to this. You remember, we got into World War I because Archduke was shot in the Balkans, and we ended up in a war, a place that didn't matter to anyone. Right? Now, Treaty of Versailles unfairly burdens the Germans with the debts of World War I. It didn't unfairly, it impossibly burdened them. It set them up for failure. Then the rise of a World War I veteran corporal named Adolf Hitler makes World War II happen. The greatest genocide outside of the quiet Soviet genocide that's been going on for a century, that went on for a century, the greatest genocide in mankind, of mankind's known history, was caused by a revenge document. And we've been prancing around expanding NATO in kind of a ongoing victory lap since 1988. Imagine if, and this is one of the things that got me out of competitive fighting. I actually always, as much as I seem like a bull in a china shop, when you beat someone fighting, I actually feel horrible afterwards. Yes, I'm glad I won. That's a fleeting moment. And then I feel really bad about what happened to the other guy. And it made it not enjoyable for me. Imagine the tennis player after they win that they run around and gloat. Now you hop over the net and you shake your opponent's hand, you give him a hug, and you raise your hand, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And then 34 years later, you're still running around the court. How absurd would that look? That's what our politicians have been acting like and doing, and the United States has been doing for 34 years. They've had enough. And not only have we been doing that, we've been building alliances and we've been creeping up on Russian territory. Now, NATO scares the other side because it basically says, if you mess with one of us or invade us, we are all contracted to come to your defense. Now, that means the United States. What it does is it creates a line, it's a trigger for warfare. And so what's been good is between Russia and Europe, there's been this buffer of these satellite countries. Except, what have we been doing? We're not occupying them, we're contracting with them to make them partners in this, I think it's Article 5 of the NATO charter, that if they're invaded, or Article 4, whatever it is, if they're invaded, we have to invade back. We have to defend. So what we've been doing, Russia's been here and it's had all this space around it with its former satellites that has all these relationships with factories and businesses that they had out in the hinterlands away from Moscow. And we've been annexing those into our alliance. And we've built a lopsided alliance. And a lopsided alliance feels like a bully. Now, I don't know who doesn't get this. If you're the girl at school who wins captain of the cheer squad, and then you go around and make all these alliances against the girl who didn't win captain of the cheer squad, I don't think it feels good for that other gal. And that's what's happened. You know, whether you like it or not, you know, vodka does not an economy make, but Russia's a nuclear power. They're big and they're into it, and they're the counterbalance to the West, right? Now China is the emerging counterbalance. But what happened is we have uncoupled our children from our vote. So 1920, women get the right to vote, and I forget when the draft was dropped. I don't know if it was 1970 or 76 or 80 or whatever it was. Within 60 years or so of getting the right to vote, women didn't have to worry about their children being snagged and pulled off to war. And it's changed the paradigm. So now when we vote, women can vote the way women do, a little more, I would say, closer to home. They vote a little more familial. They vote a little more pro-government until they get married. When they get married, they vote very conservatively. When they get divorced, they swing back and they vote crazy left. There's just actual scientific data to back that up. It's not Greg positing it. So as women have jumped in and basically doubled the voting pool, we've had less and less accountability for our vote because women weren't going to be sent off to war. And women aren't going to be sent off to war. And men will always jump into the gristmill. They can say we're fools. Oh, war is a man's game. Blah, 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 blah. It's not true. War is the extension of last extension of every nation's political will. And when that comes, that time happens, you only send women if it's your only option. You send men because we can carry more weight, and warfare is a manual labor endeavor. And you send men because we're fine killing, we're strong enough to do it, we don't bleed out as quick, we blood clot faster. You send men because that's what you do. Now, we let women vote, we uncoupled our children being taken by our government, and when we did that, we lost our way. Women have lost their way. Ladies, if you vote out there, some of you vote in a very informed way. Many of you do not. Many of you vote for the guy you like better. Many of you vote for the guy that's more attractive. We've all heard, he's very handsome. That used to be said a lot. I was thinking it was so funny during the campaign for Bill Clinton, the first campaign. There was so much discussion amongst the media, the intelligentsia, and women voters about how handsome he was. And I thought to myself, how the fuck is that relevant and why is that being repeated out loud? Now let's go to what happened in this last election, okay, before I get too far afield. We had a guy in office that was polarizing. He was opinionated. He was brash. He kind of worked things out right in front of you. He was just, you could tell he wasn't running off a script that they had calculated every word behind closed doors with a bunch of George Washington University public policy whippersnappers. He was kind of working things out right in front of you, doing a 2.5 hour press Q&A all the time. And he had all of these great policies that were so good for the United States. And this is something we have to resolve as a people. We have to resolve accomplishment and merit, and we have to resolve accountability, and we have to resolve the personal character. I have a hard time when we start deconstructing our politicians based on their personal lives, because it disqualifies almost everybody if you look all the way back through their life at some point where they did something wrong. It disqualifies almost everybody. And we disqualify great people. Now, I could go through a list of the last administration's accomplishments. But let's talk about this war for a minute. Does anyone in their right mind think that under the Trump presidency, after the fake Russia collusion that's been absolutely blown out of the water numerous times and completely, does anyone think Vladimir Putin would have been emboldened to go into Ukraine? Now, separate question. Let's go back to my original assertion. Women have a problem. And gals, we can't fix it for you. You have to figure this out on your own. Oil makes the world go round vis-a-vis electricity and power. We can't replace it with wind farms. This isn't a Pocahontas movie where the noble, Robert Conrad's noble savage sitting out in the wilderness in their teepees at one with nature. That actually wasn't the case. That's not historically accurate. I'm such an asshole. This stuff I think all the time, and when I'm talking to fellas that are bright, we say this stuff in hushed tones off to the side or in the corner table of a tavern that you don't want to say out in front of people. We had somebody who was making great policy, and what they were doing, oil and electricity and energy make the world go round. If it wasn't for oil, you guys out in California wouldn't be eating today. If it wasn't for oil, you in New York wouldn't be eating today, or anyone in the Midwest, almost nobody. The average food travels over 500 miles before it gets to your plate. We can say all we like about farm to table. You can do that in select little niches around the country in certain seasons. And the rest of the time you can't. That's why we've been able to expand and fill up the country, because we can bring shit here. Everything works on bring shit. The color of your hat, the plastic in your lenses, the everything everywhere is petroleum derivative. Everything. The goddamn truck that brings your organic food is burning petroleum. The packaging your organic food is in is petroleum based. The processing of it was powered by nuclear and petroleum based. Hydrocarbon based fuel most of the time. What the Trump administration did, and what every American administration should be doing, we have done constrained energy based on liberal green thinking. We've done this before. And it makes us beholden to the Arabs, because all we do is NIMBY, not in my backyard. We quell energy production. We make ourselves reliant on a foreign power. When we're reliant on the foreign power, what they do starts to matter to us, and we cannot quietly sit back and let people make mistakes. We have to get involved all the time. The other thing that happens is when you do that, you take a resource for which there is ample supply, and you limit it globally, only by 1 or 2% or 3%. What you do is you change, there's a power shift. Price goes up, consumption adjusts. Price goes up, consumption adjusts. And petrochemical states, the more dollars per barrel of crude oil, the more wealth they have to do what they do. Russia is a petrochemical state. They're basically Saudi Arabia. They're a welfare state selling energy to pay for what they do. So when we don't like the president that says, oh, it's amazing, being a billionaire and famous and on TV. I mean, women are crazy. I mean, they'd let you grab them by the pussy. Oh my God. He makes an observation that, dun, 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 it's true. When you're a billionaire and you're famous, some women will let you grab them by the pussy. That's true. It's crazy, but it's true. He made an observation. And women hated it, and the press hated it. They didn't like his mean tweets, and they didn't realize he had driven down the price of oil. The price of oil being driven down at $40 and $50 a barrel takes a country like Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Russia, and it makes them quiet down because they are petrochemical welfare states. What happens to a welfare state when the value of its precious resource that it's selling is cut in half? It has less money. What happens when terrorist states like Iran and Russia, and I'm going to throw Saudi Arabia into there too, thank you 9/11, what happens when they have half as much money? They're more worried about staying in power. They're more worried about cutting deals to survive. What they're not worried about is expanding into the Ukraine. Now, here it is, and I'm going to tell you. AOC, Ocasio-Cortez, and Rashida Tlaib, and these other stupid fucking idiots in Congress, these leftist, Marxist fucking morons, bartenders and the like, who are part of the ruling class, the noise they made and the support they got from women, what it did was, it shut down a multi-billion-dollar pipeline to help maintain Western energy independence, which allows the West to project morality of freedom and equality. Freedom is, how do you make people free? Money. If everyone's got money, freedom happens. Without the money, you're a slave because you got to eat. And so what happened was, for those of you out there whose wives vote left and you vote right, you shrug it off. I'm telling you, I wouldn't marry a lefty. I couldn't. I could not live in a home with someone who's a leftist. I would divorce them. You should too. People who think this way and vote this way, what they're doing is they're stupid and short-sighted. Let's stop making oil here, which we need, so we're forced to buy it there because we still need it, even though we have our head in the sand or up our ass and don't know any better, which drives the price up and empowers terrorist states. So if you voted for Joe Biden and the Green New Deal and the $1 trillion they want to spend remaking America, look at Europe. Look at their dependence on Russia. They've spent the last 20 years becoming non-hydrocarbon-based economies, and they're almost 100% reliant on Russia. For what? For a big pipeline of hydrocarbons, because they've shut it down short-sightedly, because they let theory and little ladies' butterfly hearts about green grass and Disney movies and Hakuna fucking Matata trump the rationality of science, thermodynamics, and energy use and consumption. They've let knitting and stickers and crafting trump science, industry, and energy. If you're a leftist and you vote for that, you don't understand anything. You're a fool, a tender-hearted fool who should be drafted and sent to a dark place to try and stick up for yourself and your buddies. And when you get home, see what your reflections are. That's what you should do. See how great you feel, how much you think energy is how green energy is the most important mission in America. John Kerry coming out talking about what a catastrophe was going to be. So they cut the pipeline. Now I want you to imagine a government that approves you to spend billions of dollars on a pipeline and lets a stupid cunt fucking bartender from New York take away your license and 40,000 jobs and a nation's energy independence off the stupid fucking rantings of a fucking Marxist bartender and some goddamn immigrants who have somehow made it into the halls of power selling women on this horse shit. And you guys out in California have your fucking heads examined. And New York too. Both of you fuckers. Imagine that. Imagine if I said, I want to cripple the nation's ability to project our morality and power of freedom and independence and self-determinism of John Locke and Montesquieu and Hume and the American ideal, the shining city on the hill. We're going to stop doing that and we're going to cut it off at the legs by making us energy dependent on Muslim terrorist states, petrochemicals terrorist states. That's what we're going to do. That's what they did. That's what you voted for. And if you voted for Biden because you didn't like Trump's grab him by the pussy comment, you're a dumb coward. You're stupid. You're a stupid, dumb coward. You don't deserve the right to vote. Because what you did is you voted for a group who immediately, listen, if we went to war with a country, the first thing they do is blow up your oil supply lines. That's the first thing they do. The first thing your enemy does to cripple you and bring you to your knees in a war is take away your energy. That's the number one rule. Second is water. And we've elected people, and the first thing they did is what our enemies would do. We burn the cleanest, lightest carbon footprint energy per kilowatt of any nation on Earth. And we're caught up doing this silly shit. Why? The Europeans sold us on it. Why? Because we all like to think we're fancy. All of our ruling class wants to be fancy at fancy parties. We want to be like the Europeans. The old world's so sophisticated. And we got it right, they got it wrong, and our own people are doing what the enemy would do. They're going after our pipelines. When your government goes after you like your enemy, the government has become your enemy. If someone in your house votes for what the enemy would do, they have allied themselves with the enemy. The opposite, right? What's that old saying? The enemy of my enemy is my friend. How about the friend of my enemy is my enemy? The friend of my enemy is my enemy. I guess it's the opposite. Anyways, I'm kind of worked up about it, you guys, because I'm sick of fucking running into white people and women. No, look, it's not black votes. Look, the black vote has been owned by the liberal Democrats since the civil rights movement. If you listen to Malcolm X, he talks about the imprisonment and the intellectual plantation of the modern white liberal. The blacks have been owned. They have been owned. They got the freedom of their body, but their spirits have been owned by the same sharecropper organizing Democrats who held them as slaves. Black people are still mostly slaves. Intellectually, they're just slaves. If you still vote Democrat as a black person, you either are dumb or you're a slave. There is no reason to vote Democrat. They've had your vote for over half a century, and they have just fucking done you wrong. The empirical evidence is on my side, not on yours. And what we found in the last election is black Americans voted in droves conservative, more than ever, scared Democrats. Hispanic Americans voted conservative more than ever scared Democrats. Independents and women got turned off by divisive language because we're used to hearing presidents smooth talk us and lie to us. We are not used to hearing presidents speak their mind and work with you in public right in front of your very eyes. We're not used to it. We're so used to the lie that the truth burned your hands so much you voted for the current feckless group that we have. Now, I called this. I said, right after the election, I said, if you voted for Joe Biden, you have voted for war. Women say, oh, that's not true. I want to return to decorum. And fuck decorum. I don't want any more goddamn decorum. Do you know what decorum gets us? War in the Ukraine. Decorum gets us cowardice. Decorum gets us lies. If you voted for Joe Biden, the blood is on your hands. You're killing Ukrainians today. Because you voted for a silly energy policy. You voted for a green movement that runs contra to actual, real, not model computer generations of the future that they don't know if they work, actual, real scientific data today. You voted against it. You voted against independence. You voted against liberty, Western liberalism. You voted against self-determinism. You voted against the new world. If you voted for Biden, you voted for the lie. Somebody polite who sticks a spiny cactus thing up your ass. That's what you voted for. Real nice and sweet while they snap on their glove and shove it up your ass and rip your insides out. That's who you voted for. And he wasn't ever very nice. Now we know he's just a bitter old coot. And the people around him are savage ideologues who hate America. And all they care about is piling up their own money. And I like people piling up money. All they care about is taking it away from you. Trump didn't want your money. He wanted to make money. He wanted you to make money. These guys want your money. Big difference. Big difference. Vote for the man or woman who wants you to make money. Do not vote for the one who wants your money. The rules, words to live by. And if you voted for Biden and you voted for an anti-energy, anti-independent America, you voted for totalitarianism, you voted for leftism, you voted for imperialism, you voted for petrochemical terrorist states to be well-funded. The price of oil this morning when I checked was $105 a barrel. You also voted for $7 a gallon gas, sweetheart. So if you voted for Biden, I want to hear your argument for it. I've heard mean tweets enough. Biden didn't get us out of Afghanistan. He destroyed our quick reaction force that was in the Middle East, stopping what's getting ready to come. There is a tide of new terror. It's growing now. Does anybody read National Defense Intelligence estimates? I get them emailed to me somehow and I read them. They're on the rise over there. It's coming. Now, you ladies who vote for this shit ought to have your fucking heads examined. And here's why. Your sons, your nephews, your sister's kids, the kid down the street. There's no draft anymore. What happens is they run into somebody like me and they get touched with a little bit of patriotism and history of America and how fucking awesome it is. And on the way home from school, they pull over in their fucking Tesla that mom and dad let them drive to school, and they stop into a recruiting center and they join the Marine Corps. They join the Army and they go off to war. You can quit. You don't have to watch. Somebody just quit. I'll come back in a month. It's okay. Don't come back at all. I don't care. I'm so sick, and you guys, we have to engage. The women in our lives and the soy boy skinny jean top not wearing fucking liberal hippie lefties, we have to engage them and say, you're sending other people's kids to war. Now, right now, you've sent Russians and Ukrainians to war because you've emboldened Putin, you've doubled his coffers, you've made his coffers fat, and you've shown such a weak, feckless leadership that you've encouraged our enemies, our bullies on the schoolyard. You know, that's the other thing. Girls don't deal with bullies on the schoolyard quite the same as us. Oh, thanks. I'm glad you're not leaving, Bailey. Guys, we have to realize when we talk shit, someone's gonna punch us in the face. If you look at someone's woman, you might get hit in the mouth. You say something wrong, a dude might pop you. Girls never have that. I mean, I never flip off anybody in traffic. I see women flip people off all the time. I'm like, flip off the wrong dude who doesn't care about girls, who get out and knock your fucking teeth out. You might stop flipping people off. We have emboldened our enemies. They're rising. And here's what's coming. People say, well, there's no draft anymore. Just because you say I'm not accountable doesn't mean it's right. I'm not accountable. That's what, well, there's no draft. Well, they can't get my kid. They can get your kid. Your kid could sign up at a recruiting center. You girls don't get this. When your kids turn 18, they fucking do what they want. Now, who cares about Ukraine? It's not about Ukraine. It's about Taiwan. China wants Taiwan. Well, why do we care about Taiwan? Because Taiwan's eastern coast has deep water ports for nuclear submarines that could deploy to western United States undetected. We would not see them launch. We would not see heat plumes from them leaving port. That's why. We don't want China to have Taiwan. China wants Taiwan for its ports. Why? For nuclear submarines. What are they telling everyone? Oh, because they're ethnically Chinese, we want them back. That's like Europe saying Americans are ethnically European, we want them back. Horse shit. It's not a fucking real argument. So start calling horse shit on everybody. Stop being so nice to women who are voting stupidly. And men too. You know, more men vote correctly. Do you know why? Because more men are worried about going to war. That's true. It's just fucking accountability. Women are not worried about it at all. Not one bit. They haven't been popped in the mouth. They haven't been drafted. You know, I turned 18. When I turned 17, I had to go fucking register for the draft. I'm like, what's this? Well, it means if, you know, the nation needs you in a time of war, you have to, they could call you. And I was like, oh, holy fuck. I don't know any girls that's happened to. Yeah, we had to go register the draft. Like, hey, if we need you, we want to know where you're at in case we need to fucking throw you at some bullets. Oh, fuck. Well, goddamn, I don't want that to happen. I'm going to join the Marine Corps and fuck shit up. I want to get proactive instead of reactive. So this is my, what I have been saying would happen is happening. Now, what I'm concerned about is China invades Taiwan. They want to get rid of Taiwan because Taiwan's a competitor in the global marketplace and they want their deep water ports. Why do they want their deep water ports? So they can deploy deep water nuclear submarines against the United States. Why do they want to do that? Because they want first strike capability and they want to be able to counter our morality around the planet. And if you think China's morality being omnipresent on the planet is a good thing, you need to take a look at 1939. You need to read some goddamn history. Girls, I want you to vote. Ladies, I love you. We love you. But enough with the fucking Better Homes and Gardens voting patterns. Enough listening to those stupid cunts on the morning show out there, Joy Behar and those other stupid Whoopi Goldberg, those dumb cunts. Enough. Don't listen to them. They're wrong. Insulated and multi-million dollar houses out in Beverly Hills telling you how to think. Because lesbians and old ladies aren't worried about their kids being sent off to war. Think about your kids going off to war. Because right now, your weak, feckless leadership and voting has sent young Russian boys in to kill young Ukrainians. And the number is going to be awful when it's over. And the United States is sending my sons and daughters of the volunteer class of blue-collar patriots. They're sending my kids off to stand ready at a wall in Eastern Bloc countries just in case the Russians push it, just in case they go too far. So now we're going to be standing right across the border from Russians, another nuclear power state. How do you think that's going to go down? What could go wrong? What could go wrong? A bunch of 19 to 23-year-olds standing across each other with the prospect of nuclear annihilation a possibility. You know, this isn't fucking Afghanistan. It's Russia. I mean, I'm not afraid of those fucking drunk cocksuckers, but they've got nukes. There's no good that comes out of all of our airplanes and all of our men flying right up to a border with each other. And while our politicians for the last 50 years, 30 years have been doing a fucking wah, rah, wah, we're the famous sole surviving superpower, let's expand NATO and let's fucking tie down Russia. They pin down Russia, and what does a rat do when you push it into a corner? It lashes out. And here we are, doing nothing, maybe getting sucked into a conflict. You know what it took to start World War I? One dude got shot on the street. One fucking dude. You know what started the Revolutionary War? One shot heard round the world. Do you know what starts World War III? Two global nuclear powers across an imaginary line on the ground, accidentally someone shooting somebody. That's all it takes. But thank God you don't have to listen to mean tweets or grab them by the pussy. Thank God, huh?